Hi, I'm Claire Rosamond, clinical psychologist and ISEF certified EFT trainer in Brisbane, Australia. I offer therapist training in Sue Johnson's emotionally focused therapy, or EFT as we know it. Thousands of therapists all around the world are discovering the power of EFT and signing up for online or in person training events to learn more about this wonderful model of therapy. So, if you're thinking about doing some training in EFT, you'll soon see that you can train in EFT for couples, families, or individuals. So, it's helpful to know more about the various options when making a choice of where to invest in your training. If you work with individuals as well as couples and families, it can be tricky to know which training pathway is best for you. You might be wondering which modality you should train in. It's certainly fine to train in more than one pathway, as each of the courses build on each other, but most people want to know the best place to start. So, because I teach EFT for couples and EFT for individuals, I'm often asked by therapists which course they should start with and what the differences are. So, in this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the aims and the differences of the couples and relationship model compared to the individual model to hopefully help with your decision making. Although I'm only comparing EFT for couples with EFT for individuals, there are options for training in EFT for families as well. So I've put the links on the BSEF website so that you can find those workshops around the world as well. It's also worth noting that you can do a one-day workshop called Fundamentals of EFT, and that workshop introduces you to working within the EFT model across the three modalities. That'll give you a taste of EFT for individuals, couples, and families, and it'll show you how EFT uses an attachment frame while working experientially and systemically to create change. So this introductory workshop is offered by various trainers around the world, online and in person. EFT originated as a couples and relationship model where it developed a really impressive evidence base over more than 30 years, showing that it was a highly effective model for improving relationship satisfaction and for building security and loving bonds between partners. Given its focus on emotion and on tracking patterns in relationships, as well as its non blaming stance and its beautiful attachment basis, it then made a lot of sense that this model was also really helpful for working with families and all kinds of relationships of all configurations between people who matter to each other. The aim of EFT for couples is to help partners to see how their coping strategies, the things they do when under stress, actually work against their attachment longings. The very things they do to cope when they're activated actually can make it impossible for the other to show up in the way that they need. And the end result is emotional disconnection and attachment insecurity. This then becomes a self-perpetuating cycle that erodes the bond. So in EFT for couples, we help partners to see and exit this cycle by reflecting and slowing the process, by following emotion to access the vulnerable primary emotions behind someone's coping or protective strategies. And we help them to send clearer signals to each other, signals that speak from vulnerability and that pull for the other's accessibility, responsiveness, and engagement. These are the components of secure attachment that we call the ARE of attachment. We restructure their attachment bond in this way by stepping out of old patterns that cause disconnection and into new patterns that build their bond. Interestingly, although intense research has gone into EFT for couples, it was shown that a course of EFT had benefits for the individuals within relationships, not just in terms of relationship satisfaction. So people showed improved emotion regulation capacity, reduced rates of depression and trauma symptoms, and also decreased attachment anxiety and avoidance. Anecdotally, therapists learning EFT for couples or families always told us that it improved the way they work with their individual clients too. So as a result of the popularity and the power of EFT, more recently it's been developed for use with individuals. So we call this EFIT, and EFIT is all about developing emotional fitness. So this means building a person's emotional regulation capacity, building their self-belief, and supporting them in reclaiming their needs and shaping a life worth living. So EFIT is about building security within the self and within a person's most meaningful relationships. EFIT draws on the principles of EFT for relationships, and it harnesses the power of emotion and attachment to improve individuals' engagement with self and other to build a full and rich life. Change in EFT for couples is about exiting negative patterns that erode connection, and it's about following emotion to create moments of vulnerable sharing where partners can impact each other positively, where they can get their needs met and they can build their bond. So we create moments of connection like this between partners to restructure their attachment bond, and in this way they shape security together. Change in EFIT is about helping someone to see the ways that their coping strategies have got them tangled up and stuck in life, like how their best attempt to manage painful emotion could be getting in the way of them living the life they want and need. And we look at how this might be also impacting their closest relationships. We help people to see and exit these patterns and to interact differently with their inner world. With the help of their attachment resources, we help them to lean closer to rather than avoiding their vulnerable emotions. We aim to help them mine them for meaning about their deepest fears and needs and use the wisdom found there to shape their direction in life. So in this way, we help them to create security within self and security between self and others. The first training for EFT for couples is an externship in EFCT, and the first training in EFIT is Essentials of EFIT. So both trainings are 4 days with 24 hours of professional development. Both provide an overview of the attachment, humanistic, experiential, and systemic theoretical underpinnings of the EFT model, and both cover the EFT micro interventions and the macro intervention of the EFT tango. There are some key differences then, though. So EFT for couples, of course, talks about relationship distress and the attachment view on love. We use couples case examples, including monogamous and non-monogamous relationships, heterosexual and same-sex relationships, and we look at using the present process and the EFT tango to shape moments of connection between partners every session. Importantly, we look at topics relevant to relational work, including working with escalated relationships, tracking the negative cycle, shaping encounters between partners, and working with attachment injuries like breaches of trust, and working also with sexual concerns in the EFT model. The EFIT training looks at tracking patterns or cycles of emotion regulation that perpetuate stuckness that people get tangled up with. So when we're working individually, we come alongside our clients in stepping out of these patterns. We look at how to track these life-limiting patterns within the individual and how to bring attention to the ways in which they show up with the important people in their world. And we look at how their very best attempts to cope can get them more stuck and then can impact the signals they send others. So in EFIT training, we're looking at working with emotion using the EFT tango to gradually stretch our clients' window of tolerance for touching and connecting with their vulnerable primary emotions. We show you how to create powerful encounters where clients can interact differently with their inner world to discover the wisdom within. EFIT training doesn't have the same focus on relationships as EFT for couples training does, although we do look at using the therapeutic relationship as a surrogate secure attachment bond and how we can incorporate internalized and external attachment figures to create moments of healing. So if you're trying to decide which training to take, I'd really recommend starting with the modality you most work with. So if you see more individuals, then EFIT's for you. If you see more couples and relationships, then EFCT is for you. But it can also help to think about which modality you could do with more guidance on, like which are the cases that you feel most uncertain about or all at sea with. That should point you either towards EFT for couples or individuals. If you see both couples and individuals and would like help with both, you can certainly take both training pathways. But if you'd like to start with one, I usually recommend starting with EFT for couples because I find that this will enhance your individual work anyway, and the skills seem to more easily transfer from the systemic work we do in EFT for couples to the individual work in EFIT, where I find if you take EFIT training, but you also work with couples, the EFIT training won't cover some of the really important factors to consider when working with relationships, like assessing for safety, managing escalation, working with a sexual cycle, or managing broken trust. So I really hope this video has been helpful for you in deciding which training you might be interested in pursuing. I hope I get to meet you one day at an EFT training event, and I wish you well in your work. Be sure to check out the BSEF website for more information on EFT training options that there are there for therapists. And please reach out if you have any other questions about my training events, and we'll be happy to help. Happy EFTing!